Welcome to week number 6 in our series of professional development workshops for the 2020 Leadership Alliance summer programming. I'm Dr. Will Whittles. I am the manager for undergraduate and graduate programs here at the Leadership Alliance. I'll be the moderator for today's event. This event is a component of the Leadership Alliance Virtual Professional Development Program. Leadership Alliance partners created this initiative to ensure continuity of skill building, networking, and exposure to graduate programs for students from across the country. Paired with our Monday evening Conversations with the Doctoral Scholar series, we hope to provide you with a platform for discussion of critical issues, networking with each other and our wonderful doctoral scholars, as well as for learning approaches and skills for navigating your research careers. This series would not be possible without the work of my colleagues here at Brown University, Chaminade University in Honolulu, Weill Cornell Medical College, and Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. To those colleagues, I thank you for your efforts in creating this program. Today, we will be talking about post-baccalaureate programs in the biomedical sciences, engineering, and humanities. In addition to sharing general guidance from our panelists, we look forward to responding to as many of your questions as possible. If we are unable to get to your question during the panel, please reach out to a member of our team so that we can ensure that it does get answered. There will also be individual breakout rooms for each of the represented programs directly following the panel. For today's event, we are joined by 4 wonderful members of the Leadership Alliance family. Dr. Kwame Ose-Sarfo is the director of the Bridge to PhD program in STEM at Columbia University's Fu Foundation School of Engineering and Applied Science. As director of this post-baccalaureate program, he promotes the participation of underrepresented groups in doctoral programs by providing academic, research, and mentoring experiences. Prior to this role, Dr. Ose-Sarfo was a biomedical researcher who studied multiple subfields of oncology at New York University School of Medicine, Weill Cornell Medical College, and Innovimmune Biotherapeutics. Also, Dr. Ose-Sarfo has worked as an educator to students of various backgrounds at John Jay College for Criminal Justice and New York City College of Technology. Finally, he has volunteered with many organizations that promote interest in STEM fields for non-traditional high school and college students. Dr. Ose-Sarfo understands the need and importance of improving and fostering support systems for the next wave of underrepresented STEM scholars. Dr. Ose-Sarfo received his BS in biology from Xavier University of Louisiana and his PhD in biomedical sciences with a concentration in molecular oncology and immunology from NYU's Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. Maya Hall-Smith is the program administrator for the Brown University NIH Prep Grant and the program assistant for diversity initiatives at the Graduate School at Brown University. In the grad school, she works directly on recruitment and retention for PhD and master's students. She assists with the planning of diversity-related events and partnering with student groups, academic departments, and offices across campus. As the program administrator for the NIH Prep program, Maya provides administrative support to the grant's PIs, recruits potential prep scholars, creates programming for the duration of the program, and helps coordinate transitions in and out of the prep program. One of her prep scholars is also joining us. Gerardo Reyes Chavez is originally from Lima, Peru. He completed his associate's degree at LaGuardia Community College in New York and his bachelor's degree at the College of Mount St. Vincent, also in New York. He is a rising second year in the Department of Molecular Biology, Cell Biology, and Biochemistry here at Brown University, where he also completed a post-baccalaureate before joining the MCB graduate program. Finally, Dr. Michelle D. Neron is the Senior Associate Dean for Graduate Student Development and Diversity at Yale University. Reporting to the Dean of the Graduate School, she provides the strategic vision and leadership to build and maintain an equitable and inclusive campus community where graduate students from diverse backgrounds and experiences are supported in their intellectual, social, and professional pursuits. She coordinates campus-wide admissions initiatives, directs the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship Program, and the Emerging Scholars Initiative Post-Baccalaureate Research Education Program. Additionally, in her capacity as the Yale institutional representative for various national consortia, she works to identify aspiring scholars who may contribute to the development of a more diverse faculty. Dr. Niran earned her BS and MS degrees in aerospace engineering from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Brooklyn Polytechnic University, respectively. After completing her master's degree, she devoted approximately 10 years to both the aerospace and automotive industries, beginning as a research engineer and ultimately becoming a general manager. She returned to academia and earned a PhD in mechanical engineering at Stony Brook University with a specialty in fluid mechanics. She remained at Stony Brook University as a Turner postdoctoral fellow studying turbulence modeling before being offered an assistant professorship in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. She also simultaneously served as the Director of Recruitment and Diversification for the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences. She joined the Yale community in 2008. We're going to take the first few minutes of this panel discussion for our panelists to each describe the programs that they administer or have participated in. We're going to go in reverse alphabetical order of institutions, do things a little differently in week 6. So we're going to start with Dr. Niran at Yale. Could you please tell us about the Postback program?
Thank you, Dr. Whittles. Happy to see everyone. I see we have a huge number of participants. So just a quick overview of the Yale Postback opportunities. So we offer opportunities across the divisions. So in the biological, biomedical sciences, the humanities, social sciences, engineering, applied sciences, and all of the other, which could be grouped under the life sciences or natural sciences. In fact, if we have a PhD program at Yale, we will host students in corresponding postback opportunities. So one way to figure out whether or not we have a postback opportunity in a particular field is to really just check our website. And if we do offer the PhD in that field, we also offer postback opportunities in that field. I've been directing the postback opportunities since 2014. It's a year-long, typically, experience. And for participants, it's really focused on exposing you to what graduate school, first year in graduate school would be like. The primary focus is on research, but you do have an opportunity to take courses. Typically, students will take anywhere from 1 to maybe 3 or 4. We had one student who actually took 5 courses per semester, a math major. That's not typical. Generally, you'll take anywhere from 1 to 3 courses per semester. And then the bulk of your time, you're conducting research. We developed an individual development plan for each participant. So essentially, it's fine-tuned to whatever the participant's specific needs are. It is a fully funded program. We provide a stipend. It's currently at $27,200. Plus, we provide each participant with comprehensive health care and $1,100 toward the purchase of a laptop and $2,000 toward participation in a conference, or if you can fit more than one conference within the $2,000 budget, you can do that as well. In addition to the research, we have an educational component which focuses on developing a competitive application for graduate PhD and/or MD, PhD program. The emphasis on our program, even though we've had occasionally students with an interest in pursuing an MD, PhD, the primary focus is on students who have an interest in pursuing the PhD. If you have an interest in pursuing an MD, PhD, I would recommend emailing me first. There are certain other prereqs that we look for during the application review process. Our applications become available every year on November 1st, and they're due February 28th of every year. And we try to time that with when graduate school applications are due. Oftentimes, students will apply to both graduate school and postbac opportunities simultaneously, using the postbac opportunity as a backup. I do answer all of my emails, so if you have additional questions after this session, feel free to email me directly, michelle.neron@yale.edu. And I look forward to hopefully working with many of you in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Neron. Dr. Ose Sarfo, tell us a little bit about Columbia's postbac program.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Whittles. So I'm Kwame Ose Sarfo. I currently direct the Bridge to the PhD in STEM program at Columbia University. I've been directing this program for about 3 years. Technically, it will be 3 years in October, so I kind of have an anniversary coming up. But overall, our program is a 2-year research and academic intensive program to help students from underrepresented backgrounds become more competitive to apply to graduate programs in various STEM disciplines. For us, our program is primarily focused on STEM, and we cover many of the disciplines that fall under that umbrella. So the laundry list of disciplines include astronomy, biological sciences, chemistry, earth and environmental science, engineering, and all of the sub-disciplines within engineering, economics, physics, and psychology. And basically, when students come into our program, we pair you with a faculty member and you conduct research as if you are, we say, a baby graduate student. So the point is to try to get you from that undergraduate level of conducting research to getting you ready to actually complete a PhD doctoral program. Our scholars are hired as research assistants, so that's the specific role, and our starting salary is actually it changed, is $40,600 per year. And in addition to that salary, we provide a $1,500 education stipend, and that stipend can be used to offset the cost of, say, conference registration, registering for courses, or purchasing a laptop or any other equipment that you might need for your time at Columbia University. Our scholars are required to take at least one course per semester, and these courses can be any of the courses that fall under the STEM disciplines. And more specifically, these courses can either be upper level undergraduate courses or graduate courses, because one of the things we understand is that many students who come from smaller schools, their schools might not have those high level elective courses that would make that applicant competitive for a graduate program. So you can kind of play around with more or less your curriculum for the 2 years that you're in Columbia. We do draw the line at which courses you have to take, meaning they have to be in STEM. So there has been some questions where, like, can I take ancient civilization courses, which is, you know, is a great, interesting field, but in terms of beefing up your academic resume, probably might not be as strong to take that if you're trying to apply for a STEM graduate program. So we restricted specifically for STEM disciplines. And overall, our year kind of runs like an academic year. So you take courses, conduct research during a year. In addition to coursework and research, we have various professional development seminars and workshops. Typically, we have about 2 to 3 every month. And this is where you kind of learn how to really prepare your grad school application. We have panel sessions like the one we're sitting in right now, where we get the experiences of underrepresented students who are currently in graduate programs to learn more about their experiences and how to navigate certain issues that you might face, such as imposter syndrome. And with those panel sessions, we also have admission panel sessions where faculty from various universities come and just kind of give more or less like what we're doing for the postback programs, but just give you the in and outs of applying to a graduate program from the POV of an admissions committee. And pretty much I'll be in the next breakout session. So if you have any direct questions about Columbia's Bridge to the PhD program in STEM, you can definitely reach out to me. My email information, even though it says CU to Bridge, it goes to my email. So you'll get a personalized response from me, as well as you can follow up with going to our website and checking us out on social media. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Ose Sarfo. Ms. Halsmith, could you tell us about Brown's prep program?
Of course. Thank you, Dr. Whittles, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Maya Halsmith, and I, as well as being the program administrator for the prep program at Brown University, I'm also the diversity initiatives program assistant for the graduate school. So between those two roles, I do a lot of recruitment and retention of graduate students. And specifically with the prep program, I do almost all of the administrative tasks associated with the program. The Brown Prep program is in its 4th year currently, so we're still a relatively new program and we have a pretty small cohort. It is a 12-month program. It's fully funded. It runs from June to May. And our stipend right now, our stipend rate is at $27,000, which definitely allows for cost of living in Providence for when our students come here. It also includes full health insurance for all of our students, including dental and vision. And there is a $1,000 conference funds available for students if you'd like to attend a conference or do some sort of poster presentation. We definitely encourage that and look forward to students finding ways to present their research during the prep program. All of our programs within the prep kind of umbrella are within the biomedical sciences and public health. So we have a full list of our faculty on our website that include the various labs that you could join as a prep student. And although the list is not all encompassing, it is a pretty long list, so there's definitely plenty of faculty and lots of options there for you. Most of our programming for the students are trying to find ways to incorporate you all into our community of graduate students, and especially our graduate students of color. We include our prep students in all of our orientation programming, on-campus events, student groups, meetings, etc., to try to get you a better idea of what it's like to be a graduate student during your time at Brown. Because we understand that that transition from undergrad into a graduate program is a big one, and it's a big difference. And it's a great idea to be able to take that year of prep to kind of understand a little bit better what you will be getting yourself into when you join a PhD program. So that's really one of the great things about doing a prep program, and since you all are interested, it's a really good thing to start thinking about. Our application opens in November and it closes on February 1. And our focus for the program is on research. So you pretty much are doing research full-time with a PI or lab mentor of your choosing, again, from that list that I had mentioned earlier. And you do have the option to take at least one course during your time at Brown. That can either be during the fall or spring semester, and it can be either an upper level undergraduate course, let's say if something that you didn't get a chance to take as an undergrad, or maybe didn't do too hot in and want to do again, or as a first year graduate level course of something that you know you'll need to take during your PhD to get a better idea, better understanding of what it would look like. I'm going to stop there just so I can leave some space for Gerardo to give some information about his experience in our prep program.
Mr. Reyes Chavez, please.
Hello, thank you for the introduction. Maya covered a lot of it. My experience in the prep program was really good. I had a lot of fun. Also, I used to bother Maya a lot because it was the first time I think the prep program was running. So thank you, Maya, for answering all my questions throughout the year. When Maya was talking about the different experience, about experiencing the whole grad school thing, a lot of the things that I do remember is the free food through every event that we get, and you know, through meals you start meeting people, you talk and start building connections, and I think that was really good. I don't know what else can I say. I ended up joining my prep lab as for my graduate thesis. So it was a really good experience. I enjoy it. Yeah.
Finding free food is definitely a skill to as going into a graduate program. So if nothing else, I'm glad you got that.
So I'm going to start with the questions that came in beforehand via the Google Classroom. So the first question that came in beforehand, and I'm actually going to expand it on it a little bit, is what is the minimum GPA requirement? And maybe if you could each comment a little bit on your application process in addition to that, that would be helpful. And I guess we'll go in the same order in which you present this. We'll start with Dr. Neera.
Okay. So we typically look for a minimum GPA of a 3.0. However, we have in the past accepted, I can remember at least 2 instances where we accepted a student that had a 2.8 and one had a 2.9, but they did have some research experience, and their personal statement really elaborated plus on a strong rationale for how the program would benefit them. And their letters of recommendation were exceptional. And you know, the good thing is those 2 students are now, one is just about ready to graduate. He ended up doing his PhD at Duke University. And the second one is in their, I want to say 4th year of their program. So both made it through the program. They did really well. But typically, like I said, we look for 3.0. We also, the other thing that we pay close attention to are the letters of recommendation. So make sure that you really think carefully about who you select to put your recommendations together. And in those letters, you know, our institutions may have different questions, but we're really looking for why you think an additional year. We do consider students for a second year. The program is intended to be a 1-year program, but if there is a strong rationale for a second year, we will consider that. And, you know, we want the recommenders to explain why they believe an additional year would strengthen you in terms of being a competitive candidate for strong programs. So certainly we look at the, you know, your current GPA, courses that you've taken, but we place a lot of emphasis on your statement of purpose, and the letters of recommendation.
I guess I'm next. So our minimum GPA is a 2.7 on a 4.0 scale. However, I will say the average GPA of most of the scholars that are admitted into our program is around a 3.4, 3.5. We do have the lower GPA because we understand many of our applicants, some of them have to work multiple jobs when they're in college, so they might not have a chance, you know, they're kind of doing a little bit of everything. So we kind of look in the personal statement for any explanations for lower GPA if you kind of, you know, didn't do so hot in the course. So we put that into consideration. So we don't necessarily just do a pure cutoff at like anything below a 3.5. And I guess in my previous description, I forgot to mention our application season. So typically our applications open in December, and most of our applications are due, you know, in the middle towards the end of February. So our dates haven't been set exactly, or we don't have a specific date as of today. And in terms of what we want from you, so our application components are pretty much very similar to most graduate programs. We ask for a cover letter, your resume or CV, the statement of intent, and that's where we really see the reasoning why you want to do this program, what do you think you're going to get out of it, how this program will help you in your future plans. We ask for an official transcript from any undergraduate institution that you've attended, and finally 2 letters of recommendation. So before the question, you know, forum floods, we do not require any GREs because we figured this is a program that's going to prepare you for graduate school. And in fact, during the summer, after your first year, we provide a free GRE prep course. But hopefully this will no longer be an issue as many programs are beginning to get rid of this test that, you know, doesn't really have a bearing on on your academic future. And I just want to reiterate what Dr. Neera said about the letters of recommendation we really look at those, you know, we give a higher weight to the letter's recommendation than say like the official transcript, because we know that certain things may come up, or a person can talk about you in a way that, you know, an A in a physics course probably can't. And one of the things I will just say that I do after all of once the application season is over, for people who aren't admitted into the program, I actually give a feedback session, because we know like many of the folks who are applying to this program will eventually apply to graduate school. And maybe not 9 times out of 10, maybe 7 times out of 10, one of the factors of why we didn't go forward with the application is because the letter of recommendation wasn't strong. And you'd be surprised, like so many people like, oh my God, didn't expect, you know, to hear that. I figured I would just have good letters of recommendation. So one of the things I would suggest is, before you apply to these programs, really have a sit down talk with the people who are going to write your letters of recommendations, and, you know, kind of get a feel for the room if you think they'll write a strong letter of recommendation for you. And if not, then perhaps, you know, try to forge a connection with someone who would, because now, especially as the GREs is becoming obsolete, you know, many programs, not only at the baccalaureate level, but also the graduate level, they're going to put more emphasis on the letters of recommendation.
I wanted to say ditto to everything that was just said. I would definitely say that the emphasis for our application in terms of reviewing students for the prep program highly relies on the letters of recommendation, and that they're strong and can reflect who you are as a researcher, because that's really what we want to understand. As great as your grades may be in the classes that you've taken, we want to understand what kind of lab experience you may or may not have, what skills you've developed up to this point, and where you plan on going from your undergraduate career through to a prep program, and then hopefully into a PhD. So those are the sort of things that we're looking for in a application. So we definitely put a lot of emphasis on the letters of recommendation, as well as a statement of purpose, which, although we love to hear about who you are as a person, we also want to hear about who you are as a researcher, and what it is that you want to do during a prep program. So why is it that you're applying to a prep program in general? Why do you need that year? Why do you think you need that year? And then what is it about Brown's prep program that makes you want to apply? Obviously, there are great options for prep programs all over the country, as amplified by this panel here. But what is it about Brown that you'd like to come to our campus and do our postbac program? So those are the things that we really think about when we're reviewing applications. As of right now, like I mentioned, we're a relatively new program. We don't have a GPA minimum. That may change as we go further on to our program and our cohorts get bigger. But as of right now, we don't have a standard minimum.
The next question that came in before the panel was if you could provide any information about postbacks with linkage programs. Do any of you have insights into postbac programs with linkage programs?
I'm not really sure what you mean by a linkage program. If whoever submitted that question, if you could just give us a little more information.
We'll move on to the next one while we wait for that. So one of the questions that we received in the chat is about, it's from a student who has 2 years of hands-on experience. They want to know if they should apply to a postbac or apply directly to the PhD program.
So I guess it really depends. What you could do is apply to both at the same time, right? And one of the main goals of a postbac program is to get you into a competitive PhD program. So if you get right into the PhD program, then I would recommend that you take that opportunity to do so. But if your rationale, if you have like the 2 years of research experience, but you need more coursework, or if you just like additional research experience, you know, perhaps doing another year in a postbac might be beneficial. It really depends. But I would certainly say that I always think it's good to have a backup plan. So in that case, I would say apply to both, and then, you know, really see what happens. But apply to PhD programs that you have an interest in going to. You can always use the postbac as a fallback.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. That's how I usually I remember the prep program was a little bit later than the deadlines for the PhD programs, so that helps as a backup plan. So if you get a no for the programs that you were interested, and you get a yes from the postbac programs, then just go ahead, and the only thing that you can get is a stronger CV, a stronger letter of recommendation from people that are going to be watching you doing research for a whole or 2 years. So it's a win-win in that way.
And I would just add, because most postbac programs, the applications is more or less the same as applying to graduate programs. So you wouldn't have to do that much extra work and complete an application for a postbac program if you wanted to do both. And from my understanding, many postbac programs don't have application fees. So that's another, check in if I should do both, because it can't hurt just to send out a couple more applications if you're kind of on the fence.
So a question from a student who writes that they have adequate general research experience, but would like to venture into a different sector of research before committing to a graduate program. Would they be a good fit for a postbac program?
So if it's a different area of research within the same field, then yes, I would say that you would be a good candidate to explore other areas. So for example, if you're in chemistry, right, and you just wanted to experience, you're doing something in organic chemistry and you want to do more research in inorganic chemistry or something along those lines, I think a post-bac experience would be great. If it's because you want to switch fields, it really depends on the individual institution. At Yale, we probably would, we'd have to look very closely at the application, because if you don't have enough coursework in that particular field, it might maybe pursuing a master's degree, if you're thinking about a field switch, might be a better alternative.
I would just add to that I completely agree with Dr. Neron, and that especially because at least at Brown, our postbac program is only a year long, so it wouldn't fully accommodate something like a field switch or anything like that, just because it really isn't enough time for you as a student to understand what that, let's say, graduate department would actually look like, because you would only have a year in it. And also, if you don't come in with enough experience or at least general knowledge about the lab or field that you're going into, it would make it a lot harder to actually get through a project and get a lot of work done.
And I agree with both of the comments. Nothing else to add.
We have a question specifically for Dr. Neron. You mentioned prerequisites had to be discussed if you were to apply for an MD PhD. Which of these extra prerequisites would you consider one that undergrads should look into and evaluate beforehand?
Right. So our program runs from mid-June typically to May of the following year. So we only consider students who have an interest in applying to MD PhD programs if they've already taken the MCAT exam, and if you are well into the application process for MD PhD programs. We're looking for students who, in this case, really only need one more year of preparation. So if you begin in June, finish in May, the following August, the expectation is that you would be in an MD PhD program. So those are the two primary prerequisites for us to consider someone who's interested in applying to MD PhD programs.
Thanks. We've discussed the importance of letters of recommendation for postbac programs. We obviously know they're very important for applying to graduate school, especially as the GRE falls away. We have a really excellent question related to that. With the COVID-19 pandemic, what is your advice for forming relationships with professors for letters of recommendation? This is especially important if we're not on campus in the fall and the spring.
That's a tough question because, as most know, this is our first time dealing with this. But one particular way you can kind of form this network is in terms of research. If you're interested in a professor's work, maybe you can reach out to see if he or she has some type of, let's say, computational or side project that you can do virtually. So that way you can at least, besides saying, hey, I'm student X, I'm interested in this program, you can actually begin doing work with that professor. And then maybe that will actually help, beef up the letter recommendation that professor would write for you, because you would have he or she would have the information about your academics as well as your thought process in conducting research. But I know this pandemic is really messing up a lot of people's plans in terms of moving towards their next academic stages. So that's my piece of advice on that question.
And I would agree with that. I would just, just to add to that is just make sure you stay in the loop with your faculty members. So don't disappear just because, most things are virtual. So try to continue to try to have maybe regular meetings with them, send emails, maybe talking about progress that you're doing with your work. And, but try not to over email them, right? So if you're going to, you don't want to do, I normally say try not to stalk them when you're in person. But with email, you don't want to just kind of do the email overload. One good thing that you could do, though, via email would be to start thinking about areas that you have an interest in pursuing research at the PhD level, and try to, think strategically about certain questions that you might ask them to start a dialogue, right? Because I think that's a useful way for them to get to know you on a slightly different level.
Can I add a little bit? Yeah, something that I'm learning, and that's going to translate in many ways to your graduate school. You have to sometimes be a little proactive with your professor or your PI in the future. Yeah, I try to not overwhelm them with emails, but also try to set the first meeting, try to set your expectations and what are your worries with that professor, and try to have a communication what ways you can overcome that. So you guys both of you can help each other maintain a relationship, build a relationship from the beginning, and he will see that you actually have an interest in building that relationship and moving your research forward.
We have another question relating to making that judgment call in terms of applying to a post-bac program if you were maybe already had some of the research experience. We talked about it being very useful to include in your ensemble of applications because you never know how things will play out. Are there other reasons to apply to a post-bac program other than making sure you're having sort of just that well-rounded application ensemble?
I would, just as a brief thing, I would add that, or as a reason to apply to a post-bac program, I think it's helpful for students to understand better what the expectations of a graduate student are and what a PhD looks like. Obviously, a 1-year or 2-year program isn't going to give you a full-fledged understanding of those sort of things, but it is a lot different from undergrad. And there aren't really a lot of opportunities for students to understand what a PhD course load or career looks like compared to undergrad. So I would say if you're considering going into a PhD and for whatever reason just need more clarity on what that looks like, a postbac could be very helpful to you. And because most postbacs are research focused and that you are doing research almost completely full time, that's a lot of what a graduate career could look like. So it would be helpful in that way. Obviously, a lot of students here have research experience, and that's fantastic. But if that is something that you're considering or thinking about or kind of worried about of what that really looks like, I think a postbac would be helpful in that way.
I agree. I just wanted to give one specific example of one of our scholars who went through our program. This scholar actually came in our program, wanted to be an astronomer, and after I guess our program is 2 years, but you're going to be applying to graduate school at year 1.5. He just realized, like, hey, I don't want to do this. And long story short, he ended up, well, he's currently enrolled in a PhD program in computational biology, but he has told me many times, if it weren't for this program, I probably would have gone to a graduate program in astronomy and flamed out within a couple of months. So this is another, you can use this experience as a time to learn more about yourself and more about what you actually want to do for your next stage of your academic development.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I had a summer experience. I did the Leadership Alliance a couple of times just before joining the prep program. So the research that you do in those 9 weeks, it's completely different to the one that you do in a year long. You have total control. Most of the time you have total control over a whole project, whereas in a summer program, you usually are part of someone else's project. So it is different in the sense that you have to come up with your own ideas, your own proposals for that research to flourish, right? So yeah, and also you're gonna find a lot of this time, I mean, I'm pretty sure most of you already know, frustrating that a lot of the experiments will not work. So it is a different experience, and you want to have that taste and see if you can do that for the next 5 years. So yeah, I will encourage you to do that.
So, Mr. Reyes, Chavez, this next question's right up your alley. Would you recommend doing a postback and then applying to a PhD within the same school, or another school different from the postback school?
So I applied to Brown. I did a postback at Brown, but I also applied to other schools. Did get interviews in other schools, but for me, it was a personal choice that I decided to pick Brown, and that was mainly because I felt that there was a community of support for me here compared to some other schools that I went for interviews. But yeah, do definitely apply to other schools. There's also not 100% guarantee that just because you're doing the postback at that school, you're gonna get an interview for the PhD program at that school.
Can I just add one thing? So we require our participants to apply to a minimum of 5 graduate schools. Most of them apply to about 10. But one of the minimum 5 has to be Yale. And it's not because you have to come to Yale. It's more of a check on how the faculty are providing the mentorship and guidance. Because when the students apply, if all of the students applying, if none of them are extended an offer, I need to figure out why. And so when students are not, so just because you're in the postback doesn't mean that you're going to automatically be extended an offer. But when students are not extended an offer, I always go back to the faculty to get a sense of why. So that helps us to improve the program. And so we've been doing that now over the years. And so that has been really instrumental.
All of that goes for Brown as well. We do require students to apply to at least 5 graduate programs. One of them has to be Brown, again, for the same reason. Not that you will automatically get into Brown because you're in the postback, but it is helpful for us as kind of like a control to see how your application is comparing to other students who didn't do a postback at Brown. And obviously, we would love if you stay at Brown and continue your PhD career here. But we also recognize that maybe after a year, you realize that there's something else in another school that will serve you better, and that's what you should do. But yeah, typically our students apply to, I think the lowest that any students apply to for graduate programs is about 6. But on average, students apply to between like 8 and 10.
In what way speaking of graduate applications, in what way do your postback programs help to prepare a student for that graduate application? More specifically, how do you assist and guide them through that process?
So we have workshops specifically for how to put together a competitive application, how to write a personal statement, how to select graduate schools. So we go through all phases, and we try to front end a lot of this during the summer, which is why we start mid-June, because applications typically become available mid-August and aren't due until about the December timeframe. So we try to have a lot of the application preparation done during the summer. And we also have the faculty will also read personal statements, or if you have to submit, depending on the program, if you have to submit like a writing sample, you know, it's an opportunity for them to also do that. So we spend a lot of time helping students prepare and you know, their applications. And for some programs where there are interviews, we also do mock interviews as well.
So in our program, we do a lot of this same things. And since our program is spread across different STEM disciplines, we also ask, when we place a scholar in a department, in addition to his or her faculty advisor, we have another advisor that specifically helps with those types of things, so writing personal statements, how to kind of tell his or her research story so that other people on the admissions committee can understand the reasons for that applicant who have applied to that particular graduate program. And one other component of our program, I meet with all of the Bridge scholars every month, sometimes twice a month, sometimes every week, depending on the scholar, just to keep them on a particular timeline. But kind of what happens at Yale, we start a lot of our prep work during the summer months.
At Brown, we do our best to help students with the application process through our PIs and our administrators on the prep grant. So I'm the program assistant, and then our PIs are a faculty member in the neuroscience department, the dean of our graduate school, and then also Dr. Gee from Leadership Alliance, as well as Associate Dean Marlena Duncan, excuse me. And between all of us, we help work with our students with their application process. Obviously, each person on our team has a very different view or availability in terms of knowledge on what makes a graduate school application successful. So we do our best to provide resources to our students and work with them with reviewing their applications, whether it's a statement of purpose, helping them with finding good letters of recommendation. And then we do mock interviews with our students and their PIs to kind of at least make it a little bit more comfortable to answer questions about your research and what it is that you bring to a graduate program. We do start some of that during the spring, but really focus on it in like early fall once students have confirmed their list of where they want to apply. So we can try to help make the information that we give them as focused as possible.
Thanks. We have a question about the difference between the post-bac experience and a master's. Could you talk a little bit more about the difference between the two? I mean, other than typically the funding?
So one of the main differences with the post-bac, you don't end up with a degree. With the master's, you do get a degree. The post-bac, another significant difference would be the funding. Most master's programs are not fully funded. There are some. There's also a lot of fellowship money out there. So if you are doing a master's program, I would highly recommend doing the research to find funding so you don't have to pay for it. But most post-bac programs actually provide you with a stipend, as we all discussed, and health coverage and things along those lines. Those are the main things. Also, with a master's program, you have a set number of courses that you have to take. With the post-bac program, there's a lot of flexibility. And I think most of our programs really kind of cater to the individual needs. So, you know, if there are certain courses that you need to take, then that's how we kind of arrange your particular schedule. So it's not a set, you know, each participant coming in the post-bac has to take X, Y, Z courses. The courses are really based on what your needs are as an individual.
And also, maybe this was already mentioned, most master's programs are focused more so on courses, so you might not get that research experience that you would get from one of our post-bac programs, where although you can take courses, primarily the program is more research focused.
I agree with those answers. I don't have anything else.
Could you speak a little bit to the size of your cohorts, and then maybe if they're representative of typical programs?
I can start just because I'm positive our cohorts are the smallest. So we have, this year, our cohort is 5 students, and it's the largest it's been. Our past 3 years have only been 4 students. And I don't know that that's very typical of most postbac programs like across the country. Like I've mentioned a couple of times, Brown's postbac is relatively new, so we're still kind of in the beginning phases. And we are only in biomedical departments. So yeah, so our cohort's quite small. I think, I mean, Gerardo can probably speak to this better than I can, but I think that builds community because there is a smaller group of students. We meet regularly. As I mentioned, we try to get them integrated into the graduate student community as best we can to make sure they don't feel too isolated because it can be difficult going into, let's say, a lab that's filled with upper level graduate students who have maybe been there for a while, know each other well. And if you don't really feel like you can find your footing socially, it can be a little bit more difficult. But yeah, our cohorts, at least at Brown, are quite small. I think moving forward, we're going to get up to like 6 or so, and then years moving on from that, it'll get larger, but ours are quite small.
Our cohort size is also, well, I guess, medium. We typically bring in 8 to 12 students, and kind of like what was said earlier, since our program, we have a mentoring component, it's easier to mentor 12 students as opposed to 30. So I don't see our program drastically growing in size like 20 or 30 anytime soon. But as of today, more or less 8 to 12.
Yeah, and we're right in the middle there. We're usually 8 to 10. Although this year we are at 4, and that's because we don't have any students in the sciences because we really weren't certain about what the situation would be in terms of students being able to get into labs to do bench work. So we limited this year's program to students in the humanities and social sciences till we could figure out what that would look like. Next year, we will be going back to making offers to students across the divisions.
I'd also like to add that one thing I think that helps with building community, at least within our cohort of post-baccalaureate students, is that we have peer mentors available for our students, which I think really helps with that in terms, at least having someone who's not me or an administrator talking to the students about what it is like to be a graduate student at Brown. And also just like a familiar face to have on campus, someone you can do things with, hang out with. And they also are typically further along in their PhD career, like a second or at least 3rd or 4th year student, who can give you answers to things that you may be questioning or wondering about as you're, let's say, starting your application or going into interviews or anything like that, just because they have that experience.
Returning to the question of post-bac versus masters, a student asks, if I want to explore more within my field before pursuing a PhD, how do I know if it's best to do a post-bac or going for a master's?
Again, I think that's individual preference. And also you might want to think about it from an economical standpoint, because when you get into most PhD programs, you will get a master's degree along the way. So if your concern is if you don't do the master's degree and do the post-bac, will you get a master's degree at some point? Yes. If you go right into a PhD program, most of our institutions will provide a master's in addition to the PhD in the time frame that it takes for you to get the PhD. Economically, like I said, most master's programs you do have to pay for, so that's something to consider. And then also, I think there's a bit more, like I said, flexibility with how you organize and kind of explore the grad school experience in a post-bac program as opposed to in a master's program. But it's really, there's no right or wrong answer. I think it's highly individualized.
I would say it might help to reach out to potential PhD programs and ask them if coming in with a master's degree is common. I don't think it is for a lot of fields, but I know that some things like public health, it's very common for students to go into a public health PhD having already earned a master's degree. So if that's a program that you're considering, it might make more sense to do a master's just because that's what's kind of accepted. So I would say if you're considering it and if you have the opportunity or time to kind of start reaching out and even asking those sort of questions, it might be worthwhile just to kind of get a lay of the land. And you can ask them even those sort of things. Do you have a lot of students who apply already with master's degrees? And if so, in what types of fields? Or if it's not very common, then you can know that maybe I don't need a master's to go into this, but I do want to do a postbac.
And just to, that was a great point that I did leave out. There are some programs that actually require a master's degree. And so you may want to check to see if it's required, in which case then you do not have a choice. You have to do the master's degree first.
When applying to both PhD programs and postbac programs, should those letters of recommendation be customized significantly?
They should be customized, but at least for our admissions committee, we already know the majority of our applicants are applying to graduate school. So if a letter writer writes, to the graduate review committee, it's not like we're going to toss out the application because, it's just a minor thing, at least for us.
And actually, if students are applying to Yale's graduate school and to the postbac simultaneously, you don't have to send separate sets of letters. We will use the letters in your graduate school application for the postbac, so you don't have to recreate the wheel.
You three represent phenomenal postbac programs. So I hate to make you promote others, but is there a database or comprehensive list of postbac programs?
If you're interested in the biomedical sciences, many institutions that have NIH funding have postbac programs. So you can go to the NIH National Institutes of Health website to find out about their postbac programs. You can also just do a regular Google search on universities with postbac programs, and you'll see many of our institutions have postbac programs. Some might focus on specific areas, some might be across various divisions.
One other resource that you could use, and you could just Google this because I don't know the exact website. I believe it's called Pathways to Science. Yeah, Pathways to Science or something like that. And they'll have like a list of various programs in different STEM disciplines, but Google search will do well also.
So we have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to make this be kind of a lightning round. What would be the one or two most important pieces of advice you would give to somebody considering a postbac program?
I would say speak to participants who have actually gone through a postbac program.
And since most of our programs are to help underrepresented groups move into graduate programs, reach out to us. We can give you more information about what you need to include in your application. We might not be able to read your personal statements, but we can give you, some guidelines of how to strengthen, say, your statement of intent or your resume.
Mm-hmm.
Maya or Gerardo?
I would definitely say reach out to the students who have participated in the postbac, just because they have the firsthand experience to understand what it is that it really entails. And then I would also say to if you're thinking about maybe making a list of schools that you want to do a postbac at, make sure you expand that to a couple of places that you might not have considered for maybe a PhD program, but that have a postbac program in at least the department that you're interested in. Because it is an opportunity to at least possibly spend time there, learn a little bit more about other fields or departments or faculty or whatever. So it's a good opportunity to kind of see more than what you did at your undergraduate level.
Yeah, I say the same thing. Is reach out to us. We'll tell you how different it is from undergrad and the research from undergrad, and you learn a lot. You gain a lot from it, and you also get paid. I mean, most postbac, they pay you, so that's also better to a master's, I guess you pay eventually. Yep.
So please, a round of applause at home for our wonderful panelists. They can't hear it through the computer, but the energy will go out there into the universe. I believe we have, there's a link, I think posted in the Google Classroom for the breakout sessions. I think you'll log in and then you'll indicate which representative you want to speak to. And I think for the next 30 minutes, we'll have that available. So if we didn't get to your question, definitely bring it there. If you're still not able to get the question, reach out to one of our team, and we want to make sure that all the information that you need or want gets provided to you. So once again, thank you for joining us, and thank you to our panelists.